Secret Variant just plays havoc with all of that, though. Huge Edwins and Questings able to come down at the start. Secrets can mess everything up as well. And so, agreed. Tom is in a good spot here if he can stay awake for the rest of the series.
Tom, nothing can bother this man. He is always comfortable. He always has his arms up back behind his head when he is playing. Only moves his mouse for a total of 2 seconds every turn and then returns to his position of complete zen. You see what I mean?
I do. It's just the classic tom60229 cool guy pose. We've got players sticking on aviators. We've got players dabbing in other regions. No one's cooler than Tom. It's just impossible.
Because he's so effortless about it. Okay, blitzchung's opener, questing adventure on coin with prep and a secret. That kind of looks like a package deal, but maybe plagiarize is not the one that he wants to have against Demon Hunter that early on.
Yeah, you really are just looking to have the biggest, the earliest big minion that you can possibly get here up against the Demon Hunter, which is why holding on to the Questing Adventurer makes so much sense and is going to be so devastatingly powerful. We've seen in a lot of other matchups, Evil Miscreant has kind of taken the coin away from the big Questings or the big Edwins. I think, however, against Demon Hunter specifically, they just have too much ability to destroy those lackeys. So I prefer going all in on the big questing.
And that's why I was possibly interested in even keeping the one thief for blitzchung. It kind of means you go in on turn 3 instead of turn 2, but the questing gets bigger because you save the coin and you have the one thief activation. I wouldn't have hated a full keep there, but now that he's thrown it away, we have the coin miscreant curve instead, because if he went for coin questing prep secret, then the 2 miscreants in hand would be pretty dead.
So interesting here with the coin into Evil Miscreant as well. Could have been going for Dirty Tricks on that turn, but then of course if it's not procced, you can't go prep Dirty Tricks with the questing next turn. So I can definitely appreciate holding off on it just for a little bit here, and even if it means you miss out on questing right now, you can just go pretty wide with the lackeys over the next few turns.
True. Everything's awkward if it's in terms of mana utilization, if it's not questing prep secret this turn, but if it is that you're walking directly into a marrow slicer, maybe you just have to bite the bullet and say that if you have it, and then I'll go on with my curve.
Yeah, I like deviating away from the questing on this turn. Not quite there yet, especially when you're walking into exactly marrow slicer on the other side.
Mage Scribe is a very interesting proposition to me because value is not to be underestimated from Rogue, and also Fairy Dragon gets caught in pretty much everything Demon Hunter does to go a bit wider in terms of their board clear, both the Shatter Shard Mystic and the Blade Dance, but Fairy Dragon is just a play for the rest of his mana this turn, which blitzchung was probably looking at Dagger instead, if not that.
Right, it was like that or Dirty Tricks, which I don't think activates, and he ideally wants to go prep Dirty Tricks on the same turn as the questing, you'd imagine. And if this eats up the charge of Marrow Slicer, I think blitzchung is very happy with that result.
It's true.
From nothing, power.
Ooh, second miscreant. Cold Blood?
Ooh. I think Cold Blood, yeah.
Shiv for cycle.
Ooh.
Pretty interesting. He has double Dirty Tricks and Plagiarize in hand.
Yeah, I did definitely prefer the look of the Cold Blood. I guess the idea being that it's not going to get much value because you're not likely to stick anything soon, but he's going to have to close the game fairly quickly one way or the other. And I think now, especially with Shadow Step off the top, this is the turn to go in. He's been waiting a long, long time, and finally the payoff is here.
So are we liking Lackey, Step, Lackey, Prep, Secret? Or is it like Lackey, Prep, Eviscerate, Step, the Miscreant? He can still do the other thing, but he's committed now to the double Lackeys.
Yeah, I prefer the Prep Secret. It's really just which one you're going for here, because if they give you Skull on the following turn with Plagiarize, that's probably worse than them just giving you 2 cards from your deck with Dirty Tricks as the expected play on turn 6. So I do like going for that here.
Very true. This also leaves him with 4 minions on board. That little bit
Yeah.
of insurance against Blade Dance is also something to think about. Oh, but Tom, this skull is gonna hurt so much. But he has to. There's just no setup in hand otherwise. Jandis.
Oi, oi, oi.
Or
So
you can play triple secret too?
right, so like you're afraid of obviously Blade Dance is the main way to clear off the questing, sorry, and so Jandis has a lot of value in terms of distracting from the Blade Dance, but at the same time, Jandis is incredibly weak to just a Shard Shatter. It's really close actually, in my opinion.
I like the idea of one playing more cards to get the questing as buffed as possible. The one tall minion is worth more than tons of small minions, in my opinion. And if they do clear it, then Jandis acts as your refill instead. What I will say is I really would have loved a Cold Blood in this spot.
Oh, very, very true.
Texas Blast.
Oh, a Spellbender fills out the rest of your turn, and it's just like a Mage secret that's hard to activate, which is worth quite a lot.
The bluff value is worth quite a lot, but I don't know, I think he can close out the game super soon.
Yeah, you know what? Apexis Blast Eviscerate next turn, that just reps lethal very easily.
Cash in the 1 damage backstab too, I guess.
Literally needs 1 damage to stick on board in order to have lethal. Oh no, sorry, 3 damage to stick on board now, which to be fair, with Blade Dance off the top, maybe is not possible.
Well, we're looking for Consume Magic. Oh my god, he got it! Shard Shatter full clear here.
Oh my god.
blitzchung hates to see it, but he's still in a good spot.
He's still winning, absolutely, but he hasn't won. There's Warblades in hand to heal back up. There's a lot of damage just coming through straight up from tom60229. He could win in the next couple of turns.
But it kind of depends on the quality of this Jandis. There's a stealth minion. That's insane as well. Currently, no way to buff up the Eldraki big enough to get Blade Dance on the 5/5.
Which one did he make the illusion one? Surely you make it the 4/2 here, right, to play around Blade Dance.
Surely.
Okay, good job.
Tom goes back up to 15, and blitzchung's 1 off?
He's 1 mana, 1 damage off lethal? Really? Oh my god.
And Tom is repping so much damage next turn.
Oi, oi, oi. Does he have to start sinking damage onto the board?
Yeah. Looking for Kartut Defender, Restless Mummy, and Kartut also just gets checked by Kane.
Winged Guardian doesn't get there. It's like, Restless Mummy is it, as far as we can see.
I mean, from hand, Tom just has +7 damage. Already 2 from the weapon and 1 in the hero power. So if blitzchung leaves anything more than 2 attack on board, he's dead.
So I guess you're going Abyss, trade, double secret? Or maybe play out the Micro Mummy as well?
Choose soon.
Yeah. Plagiarize does have some utility now, I think. You've seen Skull, and there's quite a few bursts you can get from the Demon Hunter. You might not trade at all, though. From blitzchung's perspective, it's completely valid to just assume that you need to get this hit face to even win at all.
It's probably correct here from blitzchung, sorry, to go about it in this way. But it is, in this instance, being very results-oriented, the losing play. Tom is able to push forward enough damage for the lethal.
This spot was, I think, very fair to say correct from blitzchung, but I want to keep going back, I'm sorry, on the Cold Blood. He took Shiv, which he had tons of cards in hand. I don't know what the utility of that was for.
I think it actually might have been lethal at the end there, either way. But, I mean, unimportant in the end, as I agree with you completely. I think that, like, to an extent, we are being results oriented, but I think in a much bigger way, we're just not, because in the majority of instances, he had all the cards he possibly needed. Dealing 1 damage to a specific minion didn't feel like it would have much utility in the matchup. Whereas I think just killing them as soon as possible, when you already have a Vis in hand and you're building up to a massive questing adventurer, is on average much more important.
I would agree. The board state for blitzchung at the time also was just a couple lackeys, so that's
Yeah.
sources of 1 damage if he really needed it. But by that point, it felt like the all-in on questing game plan, don't give them the extra turn to stay alive, was where my head was at least. But it does mean now, though, that it's a pretty big deal for Tom being able to get through what I consider not the most favorable matchup.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive there. The Rogue probably is going to get a win at some point for blitzchung, but just getting a win. It's Conquest. That is always important to get them over the line. And it's a rare occasion indeed when we disagree with pretty much anything blitzchung does with these tempo aggro style decks, because he's just been so consistently finding the very, very clever lines at all points along the way. Do think there was some room for optimization, though. And I'm sure he can find all the genius lines in the remainder of the series when we come back from this short break. It's blitzchung up against Tom, the last match of the day for APAC, and we'll see you very, very shortly. You're watching the last series of the day here for APAC. Before we send you over to the full suite of 5 games in Europe and Americas, whether or not Europe will end up casting all their games, or it will be like yesterday when TJ and Dan end up picking up the slack as usual, is obviously left up to question. Obviously, joking aside, Tom and blitzchung here fighting out for what we didn't quite realize at the start, but actually has pretty big implications for not just both of these players, but also 2 other players waiting in the wings. Because even though blitzchung and Tom are both, I believe, completely safe from ending up in that 7th place due to their tiebreakers, they are both fighting here for 2nd place, actually. This is just a straight-up win and into 2nd, where whoever takes this series will be the 2nd place player. And if they do get that, they get a bye heading into the playoffs. They just have a free win, which obviously massively boosts your chances of going through to the World Championships.
It is a huge difference. And honestly, in stark contrast to what we were seeing from Tom in the earlier weeks, he was one of the slow starters, I would say, in the round robin portion, only really picking up in the most recent weeks of GM. And now if he takes this win over blitzchung, can get all the way up to 2nd place, like you said, because with the 4-3 game score, he would be theoretically tied with blitzchung and winning the head-to-head. And these 2 players also have to play for tiebreakers of other players, namely Bank Yugi and Tyler. If blitzchung manages to take the series, Bank Yugi will end up in the 7th place and part of the relegation bracket. Whereas if Tom wins, that is Tyler's fate.
Yeah, exactly. Because of the way tiebreakers works, it's like you get the score is equal to the number of wins that the people you've beaten have got. And I mean, out of that, between Tyler and Bank Yugi, how can I choose as to who I want to be going through to playoffs? Like, Tyler has been one of the players I have spent the most amount of time in terms of watching. Like, I think second only to Ball Control in terms of the raw hours I've spent watching their stream. Whereas Bank Yugi has just come in here and already taken a very big place in my heart in Grandmasters here in APAC. He's been so friendly, so fun to watch, so open about how his emotions and how he's been practicing. It's got big implications for both of those players, and it's out of either of their control.
Bank Yugi is a very, very friendly person. Added me on ladder, and then last night he hit me with the hi, and I said, hey, what's up? And then for about 10 minutes, I got no response. It was really funny, but when he finally came back online, we were just talking about Hearthstone while I tried to grind for Legend. Very, very friendly person, and he's open about when he is playing well or not, and he will definitely be glued to the screen watching the result of this match. Tom now on the Rogue, trying to get there against Face Hunter with a very strong start of double Felmo.
Yeah, it was a tough second turn there for Tom, because I wouldn't have hated the idea of just going for double 1-drop on that turn. The idea being that you really want to put something in the way of these Felmors so that they don't just get really nice hits to your face.
It's tough, right? Because there's a certain shape of thing that you want to put in the way, namely the high attack, low health minions.
True.
Maybe the Blackjack Stunner can get a little bit more value now that he has a secret in hand. Plagiarize, can just bounce back one of these Felmos, and he can get the one thief online.
Yep, to be fair to Tom, this has worked out absolutely gorgeously. He can get the sap here. The Felmo when sapped back to hand, it's as close to just killing it as I think you can possibly get.
Oh, interesting propositions here. Just taking the cheapest one to have an activator for Miscreant other than the backstab. And actually, it just kind of helps clear off minions as a package deal, because you know that the Felmaw is going to be damaged, so you don't necessarily have backstab on that. Or at least it's very likely to damage itself into a minion.
Yeah, not a great start at all for blitzchung, having dealt no damage whatsoever in the first few turns here. And board control not really going his way anytime soon, as Miscreant, the king of locking down these early boards, is available to come down for Tom in the next couple of turns. blitzchung really just wondering if it's worth sinking the damage into the One Thief.
I think what he's thinking about is how much he can afford to play into plagiarize here, because if he knew that this was ambush, I would 100% just play out all my 1-drops here and shoot
Right.
the 1 thief or the ambush minion. But now he has confirmation that this is plagiarized because he played both a minion and a spell. So I expect to just see the hero power with the tour guide health.
And he gets a reasonable hand, all things considered. Just a couple of 1-drops is a nice way to keep up the response and fight for board, because all Tom needs to do here is just guarantee that he takes as little damage as possible in these early turns. And then value is so far in his lead, it's not even close. And those are perfect to deny any damage coming to face. My goodness.
These are indeed the highest tempo lackeys. I guess the shape of the damage is just a little bit short of being super clean because everything's at 3 health. But honestly, I think Tom is super far ahead that he can afford to face tank the Thelma, and he has Kartut to heal up in the near future.
I guess. I mean, I was looking at going for Demon Companion, and then you can go for Goblin Lackey on it 2 out of 3 times to get a trade up.
I don't know if I'm being too greedy, but I think he's fine to face tank, play down a bigger minion, and just make sure that the board is permanently annoying for blitzchung.
This is truly just the forbidden play, isn't it? Face tanking the Felmore when you have the ability not to. And yet, I mean, as I see it play out, the Kartut able to come down next turn, I appreciate the reasoning behind it for sure.
I wonder.
So how does blitzchung get back into this? I assume he's forced into replaying the Felma, and then he shoots the Dwarven? It's just too difficult to isolate anything with Freezing Trap against a deck that plays lackeys.
Right, so, I mean, you could take this opportunity to get down the Felmore versus the Kill Command, right, is the big difference, because, like, Kill Command does have some value here, but I think you probably just need to use any value you can get, even if it's just a 3-mana Felmore.
And maybe the hero power just goes face here. For blitzchung, the board almost feels like such a lost cause that everything
That's fair.
other than the cleanest trades should be sent face. Maybe you top deck a couple of beasts, maybe Tom's hand doesn't kill you that fast and you can just push the button every turn. Rogue doesn't have healing.
This just
other
looks
than
so
Kartut
strong on this
Defender.
turn. Yeah, I mean, I think you probably just play out your small guys on this turn, because 1 Thief with Shadow Step is so premium. Even Shadow Step on the Miscreant is huge here.
Yep. Oh, this Fireball also gives Tom the ability to counter push and lock out the hero power every turn game plan from blitzchung, or at least race it. It's too much value!
It's all just too much. Oh, the upgrade as well. There is no way the blitzchung is getting through this. There's no Unleash the Hounds, is there, in the list either, to try and like wrestle back a wide board? There's really nothing.
Cards like Unleash the Hounds and Explosive Trap are much more useful on ladder, where your opponent doesn't know to play around them. But in GM with the open deck list, I 100% get behind people going for the streamlined version. And that's pretty much one of the worst draws blitzchung possibly could have gotten.
Yeah, this is completely over at this point. I don't think there's even an out for blitzchung. Voracious Reader, like if you can get it off the top, it would have had to have come this turn, really, for there to be any chance at all. Even if Felmore goes face, I think he's just dead before it can make a difference with Evasive Draconid next turn.
I agree. Tom didn't even need the Kartut.
Yeah. Literally just too far ahead for Kartut to be good.
And that is all but guaranteed for Tom to go up 2-0 in the series. Absolutely huge. Tom was towards the bottom before last week, and now he could potentially climb all the way up to 2nd place, join Surrender for the best seeding, and what a top 2 that would be potentially, because 2 of the players who have already made Worlds appearances, and Tom himself winning Worlds in the past.
Yeah, exactly. It's looking great for Tom. Also looking great for Bank Yugi by that metric, as if Tom takes the win, Tyler will go to 7th instead of Bank Yugi, and he can set his eyes on playoffs instead. I think that there wasn't really much that blitzchung could have done that game, to be honest. I've liked his Face Hunter play a lot in pretty much every time we've seen it. Just didn't get the hand he was looking for there in order to be able to find the wins. Now, though, however, I think he's finding the worst matchup left over for tom60229, as I believe that's a slight graphical error on the screen there, and it is in fact the Mage that is the one deck left over for tom60229.
And this is the deck that blitzchung was hoping to get some good matchups against. Face Hunter, I do believe, is in favor of that. The Mirror, it's anybody's guess, of course. And Rogue, it seems like either variant of Rogue, now that I've watched the more skilled Secret Rogue pilots go about the matchup, I'm also on board that it's got a pretty good shot against Tempo Mage. We've seen Tempo Mage sweeps or been reverse swept before, notably from Tiz's series, but I wonder if Tom will pilot it in a bit of a different way. To begin with, he's got a different list.
Yeah, they both have interesting lists of the Mage here. There's obviously both of them going with the one Firebrand is kind of the standout card there. Tom still has one Spellwing. blitzchung has no Spellwings at all in favor of double Arcane Intellect. I think the real problem you can run into there is that your deck doesn't actually have that many cheap spells. Like when you compare this list with the version that runs Spellkin and Arcane Breaths, or the version that runs double Spellwing as well, plus the Devolving Missiles, that has plenty of cheap spells to throw down. Whereas here, on your big Evocation turns, your big Cyclone turns with Apprentice, I think you can run a little bit low on spells in your deck. But blitzchung has consistently been playing this deck much more aggressively, fighting for tempo, rather than setting up those big spell combo turns. So I think it could work to his advantage.
That is true. I think on the previous week, we saw blitzchung with the double Firebrands, in fact, and it seems like he's just swapped one out for an Arcane Intellect. What I will say, though, is that the lack of small spells from the Violet Spellwing is doubly felt when you're running Firebrand, because if you give up a small spell slot for the Firebrand to begin with, it's less likely to even activate the Firebrand in a clean way. So I get your point that this is sometimes not going to work out as smoothly as possible. But if you're looking to go for the greedier matchups, I completely understand the double AI.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out all too well here for blitzchung, because he's just going up against the Mage 3 times here potentially on Tom's side. But we shall see as the Face Hunter tries to take down the Mage. Supposedly a favorable matchup, but it is going to be an uphill climb against this monstrous hand from tom60229.
Oh yeah, look at that! Turn 1 play solved with a lab partner. Challenges a lot of what Hunter can play on turn 1. And sometime in the near future, you can absolutely pop off with the 3 other cards and the coin. For blitzchung, it's a lot less straightforward. Scavenger's Ingenuity, I almost always keep that card. And that would lend my thinking to tossing the Wolpertinger, because you want to buff that. It doesn't necessarily have a turn 1 play, though.
I think you're probably okay just keeping Wolpertinger, just because you want to guarantee yourself the 1-drop, and to be fair, there's not that much better than Wolpertinger that you can get. Tossing away the Scavenger's Ingenuity, though, that is interesting.
He did the opposite mulligan of what I wanted to do, just Scavengers, and he kept the other 2 cards. To be fair, though, I think it was one or the other. If you are keeping Wolpertinger, I wanted to keep a guaranteed way to buff and kill off a lab partner if you didn't get a better 2-drop.
Pretty spicy cards being offered now, though. Demon Companion, obviously, with Kolek or Refa, you have an easy kill here on the lab partner. Has to take the slightly more awkward way, but you're still very far ahead on the board here and not feeling bad at all.
Yep. Denying the cram session there. Which, you know, in other cases of hands, that would be a big deal, but oh my gosh, does Tom have the goods? Mana Giant too. It's too many options for blitzchung.
Like, half the time he hits Wolpertinger and is over the moon, but then half the time he hits Phase Stalker and it's awful. I think you just play the Felmore here.
I wonder.
Yeah, with the Cub. I'm on board for that. And then the Scavengers next turn, no matter what outcome you get, it's strong stats onto the board.
It's just too bad if you miss.
And Felma, like, every single turn that you wait to play that, it gets significantly worse. Whereas the
Yes.
Scavengers, I think, is still quite impactful on the next turn with either outcome. Marcel Cub is so cute.
I mean, you changed your Discord picture to not be Marcel Cub anymore, and I was kind of disappointed.
Is my face not cute? Okay, fine. Don't answer that question, Jared.
I mean, compared to Marcel Cub, let's be honest.
Okay,
you can't
fine,
really
fine,
compete.
fine. Oh, he's going Phase Stalker. Interesting. So, that feels like the Scavengers just get stranded in hand next turn. Because you really want a hero power if you're playing Phase Stalker.
Yeah, I mean, just going like imprisoned into hero power next turn, I guess would be okay. I really wanted to get the Felmore down on this turn. Either way, coin evocation, absolutely huge here for tom60229, and he gets some pretty gosh darn good spells to go along with it as well. Taunt, removal, learn draconic, more spells generated with Mana Cyclone, cheaper Mana Giant available next turn. This is the nightmare hand for blitzchung to see, and it gets worse!
I just didn't even have time to talk, but there was another evocation. He didn't rip it with no mana left, but my goodness, this is just like a 0 mana giant next turn. I am sorry, blitzchung, and I am sorry, Bang Yugi. Wait, who wins? Wait, if Tom wins,
Bang
then
Yugi
Tyler...
Yeah, Bang Yugi's happy about this. Tyler is very sad
yeah.
about this.
Correct, okay. I'm sorry, Tyler.
Yeah, like, this is not disastrous for blitzchung. Obviously, he's still 100% in playoffs. He still gets in the position where he can look at the World Championships, but it means he doesn't get the bye. tom60229 does. But at the very least, I think he can approach it with a somewhat humorous attitude because he realized, honestly, this is just kind of funny. Like, it's just so blisteringly one-sided and unfair that it's kind of funny.
You can call it funny when you're in a position like these two players where you're definitely in the playoffs, but man, this must have been tough to watch for Tyler. I can imagine, though, that Bang Yugi is cheering his head off right now.
Exactly. Go tom60229, making it look easy. He got the absolute dream Mage hand, played it pretty much perfectly, got the perfect cards, job done. Face Hunter looking absolutely dreadful. Clearly would have made 0 difference in that particular instance if blitzchung had gone for the Felmore, for the Phase Stalker, if he'd gone round and round the garden like a teddy bear. It really just doesn't matter at that point. But the point is that he could have, on some cases, optimized his chances. Not to say that his play was wrong, but it's definitely not what you and I were looking at.
Definitely. It just goes to show that Face Hunter is still not a completely solved deck. Despite me putting in research and trying to gather a mulligan guide, it seems like every spot is highly dependent on what the other player has in their hand, and you would have to have really good experience and understanding of the matchup to predict what is most likely for them to get. It's just me that I default on playing the slow card first just to get it on the board. And it remains to be seen whether we'll be seeing that much Face Hunter next week. I think the utility of the deck, or rather the novelty of it, has worn off a little bit. It was more popular this week, but I don't believe the win rate was particularly high. Same can be said of Weapon Rogue, because both the decks do have a relatively straightforward game plan.
Yeah, I think players are starting to learn a little bit more how to play around Face Hunter, realizing that, the deck doesn't have quite so much burn as you